Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Identity theft can be a very sticky problem. To help us understand it and avoid it, our guest, Maurice Padula, Senior Consumer Frauds Representative at the Bureau of Consumer Frauds and Protection at the New York State Attorney General's office, a mouthful, is visiting us today to help us sort all this out. Maurice, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure, Richard.
I thought we could start by getting an idea about what your office does, the Bureau of Consumer Frauds. I know the AG does a lot of things. We read about it in the paper, but we're going to talk about identity theft today, and I just kind of like to know what you do other than the identity theft part.
Sure. Well, our office, Consumer Frauds and Protection Bureau, has four primary functions, one of which is mediation, and with mediation, we'll take a complaint from a consumer.
Directly from a consumer.
Directly from a consumer. Yeah. And actually, we got a complaint form is a simple two-sided form. This is it.
Great.
And we get about 60,000 of these in our bureau a year.
Wow.
And that's throughout the state. We get about 12,000 of those in Albany, half of which we mediate. We have this mediation service where we'll send a copy of the complaint to the merchant looking for their response to whatever the problem is. Typically, we get a response within a month's time and have a resolution in the consumer's favor around that time, and that's in over 50% of the cases.
So that would be of the about 6,000. 3,000 of the 6,000.
3,000 of the 6,000, and that's just the Albany office. And the Albany covers the 12 counties around this area. So, yeah, and besides mediation, we have enforcement of the law where you have a business that didn't work out the situation with numerous consumers that they affected, and we have to take it to another level. Maybe have to sue these businesses, or possibly subpoena them for some records, or bring them in for some questioning, or go ahead and work out an assurance of discontinuance. You know, many legal possibilities. The other areas we're involved in is legislation, you know, trying to change some laws, add to laws that are out there, and also we have an education and outreach program, sort of like what we're doing today.
Great, and
yes.
For that we are thankful, because I think consumers, businesses included, are often looking for a way to make things right, and it's wonderful when there is something available.
Yeah, that's what we want to do, is let people know of the resources of the Attorney General's office, the problems that are out there, and what you can do to work on them, to avoid them is one of the big areas in identity theft.
Well, I think fraud is as old as mankind, and probably as animal kind.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about a very special kind, which is identity theft. Let's start by defining it. What is it?
Identity theft is when somebody takes pieces of your personal information and uses it against you in a financial way, actually to the point where they're going to ruin your credit, is what often happens when you're a victim of identity theft.
Could we look at a few different kinds of that? How does it happen?
Well, I'll give you, kinds of that. There's a couple of big areas of identity theft. One is utilities fraud. I was shocked when I talked to a high-powered individual in the utilities industry who told me that it's unreal how there's not much in the way of checks and balances, because my question to him was, how could utilities fraud be phone and utilities fraud be 28% of all the identity theft, even outdistancing credit card fraud, which is at 26%.
Wow.
I was shocked about that. So I asked my friend George, I won't say anything more about his, his name, but nonetheless, he told me that it was because the fact is you could do something like this. We could go into, let's say you and I wanted to go into a business at Crossgates Mall for the holiday season, okay? We could actually get a retail space and pay for the first month's. Of course, the management's going to want the first month's rent and the security deposit. But we called National Grid up with some unsuspecting person's name and social security number, and we'll be able to get utilities, the lights turned on, just if that person has good credit.
And they don't have to show up at National Grid, show a photo ID.
That's my understanding. Which would make sense when you have such a high rate of fraud, or you get an apartment in somebody else's name, and with the intention of making a quick move out. In other words, we stay in that retail space for several months, or the apartment for a few months, and where did we disappear?
Wow.
Literally disappear.
I wasn't imagining that at all.
Then what happens? The rest of us pay for that problem. Just like with credit card fraud, the average consumer that's paying their bills on time, paying more on those bills because of these crooks.
Because it affects everybody.
And it affects everybody.
Now that was about 50% that we just covered, which is quite a bit. So you got credit cards, which we'll certainly go into again, and utilities.
Yeah. There's other types of fraud, like using government benefits or
welfare, Medicaid.
Exactly, getting benefits in somebody else's name. Possibly getting income in someone's name. In other words, imagine yourself if you're an identity thief, you get a job and you use somebody else's name and social security number, and what's going to happen? When the IRS gets the tax return and the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance receives theirs, there's going to be a discrepancy in how much income was on a particular social security number. So they're going to be looking for that extra money. That's when you realize that's when the person who was victimized realizes something went really wrong here. They're a victim of identity theft. There's even identity theft. And let me just go to one area I want to be sure to touch on. I'm not trying to scare people. I just want to let you know what's out there. There's even the possibility of identity fraud where if you get stopped by a police officer, there's times when somebody will pull out fake identification, okay, and ultimately, they're not going to show up in court for that speeding ticket. You are going to be ultimately responsible, exactly, summoned, and have to deal with the fact that, again, you were victimized. So those are some of the, we covered most of the identity theft, areas of identity theft with those different subjects right there.
I know we're going to go into some ideas about how to protect yourself and the dangers, but one of the things I've always thought about, because I like online things and people are always telling me, oh, that's dangerous, I don't do that. We talked a little bit about this before the show.
Yes.
Because I was more concerned with giving my credit card to maybe some small gas station in the desert where the guy's wiping his forehead with a dirty rag, and making a photocopy practically of my credit card. Is that really a big danger?
The much more danger when you leave the possibilities out there like this. If you have a mailbox where you put your outgoing mail and you have a flag that you put up, that's basically saying, hi, identity thieves, come and take my mail and make me a victim.
Right.
Yeah. And you don't want to do that. You want to have a locked mailbox, post office box, slot in your door.
Or take it to the post office.
Take it to the post office. Or if a lot of your bills can be done online, that's a safer way. I mean, as long as you know you're on a secure website, you know that the address bar has an HTTPS within it, S standing for secure, and or there's a lock that is closed at the bottom of your screen, you're in a safe place. As long as you know you went to, if your bank is Bank of America, you went to www.bankofamerica.com, you're where you should be as long as you see that HTTPS and or that lock at the bottom of the screen. You are good to go, and other avenues of paying your bills are not as safe. So, we'd strongly encourage people to, not be afraid to, do the online transactions as long as they know they're in a secure place.
Let's back me up a little bit, because
Sure.
I jumped over your mailbox a little too fast, I think.
Okay.
Were you saying people are really, maybe just if they have a lot of financial information, maybe they should have a post office box instead of using a mailbox at all, even for incoming?
Well, if the mail gets into the wrong hands, it could potentially make you the victim of identity theft. How about if it's the Social Security statement that comes incoming mail, or credit card offers? I mean, somebody could victimize you that way, taking advantage of, again, your financial good picture and turning it against you. So, yeah, it can hurt you with your incoming mail and, again, your outgoing mail. So, you got to be careful in both of those areas. One way to, I might as well bring this up now since we're talking about mail, is you want to consider, too, opting out of pre-approved offers, okay? It's a way for you to stop getting all that junk mail, is what I call it, that you're getting at least a couple pieces a day. If you got good credit, on average, you're probably getting that much, and you can stop all of that coming by calling a simple toll-free number or going to a website, and I'm going to give you that number for you here. The number you can call is 888-567-8688. And if you wanted to go to the website instead, it's https://www.optoutprescreen.com, all one word.
And we'll put that on the screen so they can
That'll be
copy
great.
that down.
That'll be great. Wonderful
Thank you.
tool. Again, you stop all those offers coming to you, and in today's world too, there's you don't need extra temptations to take on credit, and it's a beautiful thing. You stop those, and anytime you wanted an offer like that, if you heard your friend Mary got some great deal on a financial product, oh, she's getting 0% financing till the end of the year, I could have really used that. I'll tell you what, pick up the phone, call that financial institution. If you have credit anywhere, a credit rating anywhere within the realm of Mary's, you'll get the same deal. So you lose nothing. And it's just a win-win situation. You stop wasting your time with all that stuff. You avoid being the victim of identity theft in one way anyhow. Do it.
Now, this seems like a simple question.
Yes.
I guess we could leave something out, but obviously there are things that people want to steal.
Mm-hmm.
And most people would guess, well, my name, my Social Security number. Many people are very nervous about Social Security numbers. What are the kinds of things that you really have to be careful of? What data are they really going after? And what's kind of the minimum and the maximum that they might want?
There's a lot of ways and a lot of pieces of information that can be used to piece your identity together and make you the victim ultimately. However, most identity thieves, they're pretty lazy. So they like it to do it the easy way. In other words, if they get your social security number, we call the social security number the keys to the kingdom.
Okay.
The fact is, you get somebody's name and social security number, you can get credit in their name. You can get that store at
Even without their
Crossgates
birthday.
Mall to turn the lights, National Grid to turn the lights on for you. What's that?
Even without their birthday.
Even without their birthday, yes, absolutely. And you definitely get credit cards, other financial products in their name. So that's the big one. You know, what you can do with somebody's other information, much more down the security ladder as far as, you know, how's this
Mother's
person ever going to be
maiden
really
name or-
affected? Mother's maiden name, driver's license, those kinds of things. The social security card is the big one. However, you know, people are always victimized too when they might have their credit card compromised. In other words, we've all heard about it in the news, millions of consumers affected in one way. Let me explain. Earlier in the year, there was 41 million credit cards. The numbers of these credit cards, and I guess the names of the individuals that had them, were obtained by a ring of thieves. I guess there was 11 of them. They've all been arrested or being prosecuted. But the thing is, they were able to obtain these just by having a wireless laptop with an antenna headed in the direction of like BJ's Wholesale Club and other establishments, and they were able to get all this information. They weren't able to use too many of the 41 million credit cards, but they did. At last I heard, I believe it was $150 million in different purchases were made, using those available credit cards. It's a lot. It is.
Because they weren't all huge purchases. They were gasoline.
Sure. And a lot of online purchases, overseas purchases, just quick ways to get some stuff for the money that they just had stolen. And they got a lot, and it wasn't sophisticated. It was just a situation where these businesses need better firewalls. Not being able to let a simple technology be able to get into their personal records of their customers. So they're working on that. I don't think those companies will make the same mistake again.
Maybe a different mistake.
Yes, absolutely.
So what can a person do? It sounds like you can't be perfectly safe unless you can't be perfectly safe. If you put your money under a mattress, your house could burn down. So there's no way to be perfectly safe. But how can we protect ourselves within reason?
There's no way to be perfectly safe. That's a very good point. However, we can do things to protect ourselves. One of the areas that's huge in that regard is looking at our own credit on a regular basis, okay? By getting a free copy of your credit report. And remember, I said it was free once a year from each of the credit reporting agencies, and there's three of them: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And if you ever wanted to, people could call our office directly and get this material. So if you wanted that, I can give you the toll-free number. Anybody can call anywhere in the state. They can get this information from us. Should I give you?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's 1-800-771-7755.
Great. And that's the Attorney General.
And that's the Attorney General's office. And we can give you things like this brochure on free credit reports, and where we recommend, there's only one place to go to get a free copy of your credit report: annualcreditreport.com. Other companies might have the word free in their name, for example, but they're not free.
You're free to ask them.
Yes, they're making you pay for a monitoring service where we recommend that You stagger how you receive your 3 credit reports, because you can get one from Experian. Maybe you want to get one now. You haven't gotten one yet this year. Get one from Experian now. Come springtime or summertime, get one from Equifax. And then in the fall, one from TransUnion. Do the same thing in 2010. It'll be free. You can get one from each of those credit bureaus for free once a year. So annually, you're always able to see what your financial situation's like. In a second, you'll know if you're the victim of identity theft. It's going to show up on your credit report if there were 5 credit cards in your name that you knew nothing about. You see $20,000 in delinquencies. You're like, oh no. And well, at least you can deal with it before the average identity theft victim deals with the problem. The average identity theft victim doesn't deal with the problem until 18 months after it started happening. And they don't deal with it because they're looking at their credit report. They're dealing with it because they went to get a loan, went to get a job, went to get an apartment, denied. And they're thinking, how did this happen? You know, and that's when they find out by asking their prospective employer or landlord or car dealer, what's going on here? How could I get denied? I got great credit. No, you don't. I mean, you go take a look. You go to annualcreditreport.com, you see the problems, and then you deal with it. But again, the average person doesn't do that, as I would recommend you to, and our office would. I mean, good to look at your own credit on a regular basis. Why not? It's for free. You can't often say something's this good that can help you in a financial realm is going to be free. But this is truly free.
Now, what you're saying, it kind of implies that there are a lot of forces out there, and no matter how careful you are, you still have to check because somebody may have stolen your information from another source, such as a credit card.
Richard.
What can people do to minimize their own mistakes in terms of, you write your information on a note. This would be the worst thing. Write all your PINs and your Social Security number, and so you don't forget it, and put it next to your computer, or you put it on the bank and you leave it there, or.
Yeah, good point. Be sure to have a password that is a good one. In other words, one that's not going to be easily, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's probably not a good password to use. You want something that would probably be hard for somebody to figure out. You want to go ahead and never give out your Social Security number to anybody that asks for it unless you are sure they need it. I mean,
and that would
everybody,
be what, medical?
Typically, besides the Social Security Administration, the tax department, both New York State and the federal government, probably some medical, in some medical areas you might need, like for health insurance, you probably going to need your Social Security number for some of that. But after that, I think we're at about the end of the list of who really needs it.
Not credit cards.
Oh no, don't give it out unless you have to. I mean, if you want to get copies of if you want to look at your credit report, you do have to use your Social Security number in an instance like that. But again, it's
only on that website that you get.
Only on the annualcreditreport.com. Don't give it out unless you have to. And so many other agencies, companies, they're going to ask for it, but you don't need to give it to them. They can use some other form of identification. I mean, I remember when I used to go to University at Albany, my identification card was this big yellow card, and on it, the Social Security number of myself was about this thick, and it went pretty much across the card. It looked about as big as the picture of me on there. So those days are over. Colleges and universities no longer can use identification that way. They have a different system for identifying their students on their identification cards, and we're coming more and more in that direction. There needs to be so many more areas where Social Security number is not being used, but we're getting there. Other things you can do too is, besides your Social Security card, carry on you. You don't carry your Social Security card unless you're going to need it. And when you can ever need your Social Security card, in person, it pretty much, almost never happens.
So it should definitely not be in your purse or your wallet.
It shouldn't be on you, okay? And then anything else that you aren't going to use that's some type of a financial, has some financial power, like a credit card or several credit cards. If you're not going to use them, don't take them with you.
And certainly don't have a card in your wallet with your pins and all that.
Absolutely not. No way.
Great. It could happen, though, that people are victims, as you said. Many people are who just had a credit card through a company, and criminals, by using a laptop and an antenna, were able to break in and get them. So every day, many people are finding that they're the victims. What do you do?
What do you do if you're the victim of identity theft? The good news is this again, you make you realize that it's not a hopeless situation, because you got to deal with it, first of all. And because of the folks that don't, there's been cases, and probably many cases, of things like clinical depression over identity theft. It turns your world around. So what do you got to do to deal with it? If you wanted to, you could call me directly, and I would help you through the quagmire involved with identity theft and getting back on track. But I'll give you my number. Its direct number is 518-474-6728. But to give you a quick summary of what one would do, you would go to the law enforcement agency, you go to your police and ask for a police report to be taken, and make sure you obtain a physical copy of that report. Give that to the creditors involved. They're probably going to ask for it. In other words, if JCPenney sees $5,000 in charges, Best Buy sees another $3,000, they're going to want you to pay that money. And don't think you're getting out of it without some type of proof that you didn't you didn't make these purchases. So
is there anything else you should have other than the police report?
Yes. You might need an affidavit. We have what's called an identity theft kit. If you called me or you called the 800 number, we can give you a kit that's got the affidavit in there that you might need to fill out for different companies, or maybe the credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, who you'll also want to notify. They're gonna liable to want that information. So those are some of the main areas where you'd go to for assistance in getting the problem corrected and getting your identity back intact to where it once was.
Great.
Financial identity.
So it sounds like there might be things that people would miss. The best advice would be to call you, follow through with their local police department, and really make sure that they've got all the steps that they can possibly take.
Absolutely. And any questions on identity theft at all, I'm more than happy to answer them. I realize that education's the key to this. For us to be, all of us, to be vigilant in protecting ourselves against this crime, we really have to be on top of what's going on out there, and we can do so by, again, monitoring our own credit, opting out of these offers that we don't need. There's also another great tool, the do not call list.
Right.
We all want to be on a do not call list with our cell phone numbers as well as our home numbers. If you're not on a do not call list already, join the approximately 200 million U.S. numbers that are, and by calling 888-382-1222. And some people would ask, well, I heard that that's only a 5-year list, and then you got to renew. Well, the Federal Trade Commission has changed that. It's now a perpetual list. Once you're on it, you stay on it. And I'll tell you what, I bet of that 200 million against that, there's probably a handful of people that came off of it, because you realize once you're on it, you stop all those telemarketing calls that are for-profit calls. And another thing I would bring up too is, even if you're getting a call from a non-for-profit, because they're excluded from the do not call list, you're able to tell them directly, if you have them on the phone, if you don't just hang up on them like many people do, myself included. Anybody calling me for money, I don't know who you truly are, I'm hanging up on you. But if you do stay on the phone and you're talking to a charity, or excuse me, a telemarketer calling on behalf of a charity, you can ask to be put on their internal do not call list. They all have them. And if you tell them you don't plan on donating, obviously it's a waste of their time to continue to call you, and eventually those calls, they're really harassment. So, and speaking of that, we have a charities bureau. If you do get harassed by a telemarketer that's supposedly calling on behalf of a charity, call that 800 number, and we will have them looking into that.
Now, I imagine that the time that it takes to clear up a situation like this can vary from very short, if all it was you're one of 40 million people and maybe there was one charge for gasoline somewhere and you change your credit card. But other people, how prepared should they be, and how long might this take?
What a great question. And I say that because you're right, there's a huge range. I mean, they say the average identity theft victim gets the situation totally resolved. They have their financial picture as it was before the victimization, and that usually is about a 2-year period where 70% of the people can say, everything's fine now. Okay, but 2 years. But most of the people or actually a good amount of the people anyway, within a year's time, it is going to be resolved. And like you said, because a lot of it is small stuff. I mean, but then there is more serious cases where you basically have some people, and you can only imagine, I mean, this person's ex, that person's ex decides to have some sort of a vendetta and decides that I'm going to get all sorts of credit in this person's name. I know their social security number. And unfortunately, this is the sad part about identity theft. And the law enforcement agencies don't have enough resources to devote the time and energy necessary to catch these thieves. So sometimes they're simply going to get away with it. I don't think that's going to happen as much in Colonie. You got Chief Hyder, who's an expert at identity theft. He's maybe the best in that area that I know. But in many locations, yeah, that is so problematic. I mean, it's a huge issue, no question about it. So yeah, the person decides that, who wants to make you a victim decides, okay, I'm going to get 5 credit cards in your name. I'm going to get an apartment.
I'm going to get on for
it could go on. It could go on a long time, especially if you don't get the backing of somebody that's going to actually take this person to task for the crime that was committed. If they see they're getting away with it, who knows how long it could go on.
So then some good advice would be really enlist the help of whomever you can who's in a good position to help, your office or
absolutely,
the Colonie Police Department or whatever.
Sure. I mean, because there's always the possibility that there will, the criminals can't think that they're going to get away with it. I mean, there's always the possibility, whether you've gone to the Federal Trade Commission, the Federal Trade Commission won't necessarily get involved in a case with the exception of maybe they'll tell the FBI, listen, there's been over $100,000 in charges that we know of done by this particular individual, just ripping people off. then the FBI will get involved. Actually, that's their threshold. They have to. It has to be that high of a number. Our office, I'd have to talk to our criminal investigators to find out what kind of number it would have to be for our office to get involved. But it's worth going to us because we've had situations where we prosecuted individuals. There was an employee of the state insurance fund actually who decided that she would sell the names and social security numbers of a lot of state workers like myself, and did so to a Brooklyn ring of thieves, got approximately, for the 20,000 names she sold, got around $50,000, was caught, and our office prosecuted her. I believe she got a jail sentence of in the 7 to 10 year range, something like that. And this happened several years ago. Now it would have been a more harsh punishment, convicted of the same crime, because the laws have gotten tougher with identity theft. I mean, look how many people you hurt too, or potentially hurt.
And even in the future, because that information was sold, and you don't know when the thing's going to go off.
That's right, exactly. You don't know who still has your personal information. That's why, again, look at that credit report, because you just never know, when there could be a problem. And at the same time, it's always good. How about if there's erroneous information there? I mean, you have a name similar to somebody else's name, for example, and the credit reporting agencies, they might, the information they've gotten from the county clerk's office on certain judgments might be such that they decide, well, we're not going to figure out what Mark Smith is the right one. Let's give all the Mark Smiths the judgment. And unfortunately, that's the way it often happens, and you got to deal with that. You got to get that removed from your credit report. Another good thing about our office, we're very successful at doing just that. If on your own you've made several attempts contacting a credit reporting agency and they're not removing the erroneous information, we usually one letter from our office and they do the right thing. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, Maurice, you've given us a lot of good information.
Well, I'm glad.
Thank you. So there's a lot of education going on today.
Fantastic.
I want to thank you for watching. This was a very interesting show to me. Hope you enjoyed the show and that you tune in again next time. Take care.